Hello and welcome to Commodity Champions, your weekly dose of what's brewing in the commodity space. I'm Manisha Gupta. Well, there is plenty that has been happening in the agriculture space. Remember, we are in the middle of the government actually formulating a plan or a regulation on what the MSP would be, how it would be procured. In the meanwhile, the government, of course, has been advising farmers to go high in case of fruits and vegetables as another source of income there. Well, India actually is the second biggest producer of fruits and vegetables as it comes. And if you look at the production numbers, we have record highs back to back for last couple of numbers. But even having said that, the imports into India for various fruits and vegetables also has been growing as our taste for exotic and organic fruit continues there. Joining us to talk more about that is Michael Taylor. He is VP Sales and Marketing at Stemilt Growers. Mike, hi. It's good to have you in the Mumbai studios here. Welcome.
Thank you, Manisha. It's a pleasure to be here. Absolutely.
What is your sense when you look at the Indian markets? I mean, you have been exporting into Indian markets for a very long time, a decade now. What really has changed in all of these years?
Oh, my goodness. So we actually started sending apples to India in 1999, but the past 10 years, we partnered with IG and we've seen our sales really grow. So when we look at this current season, right now we're looking at a double over last year's volume. So when you think about that in terms of volume, that's 16,000 metric tons so far season to date. And we really feel like before the season ends for the apples, for Stemilt apples, we will exceed 30,000 tons. And that's remarkable to think about as we look forward to next year and maybe the next 3 to 5 years, we feel we could double our volume again. The exciting thing about that is that we're getting more and more flavors to the Indian consumer today.
So, Mike, you know, of course, apples is the top, priority, top on the list when it comes for you. What really has been the growth number when it comes to India? How have you seen acceptance into Indian markets for Stemilt apples?
Fantastic acceptance. And so when you look at it, we've seen India become our #1 volume market. Well, offshore market, we count Mexico, in North America as our largest volume, but our biggest offshore market is India, and that has just been tremendous.
What other fruits are you looking to introduce into India? I understand you already are doing apples and cherries, etc. What is the pecking order really there?
For us, it's apples first. Apples first. The Indian consumers are really strong on apples, and organic apples are growing fast. So a third of our production volume is in organic, and you will see in the next couple of seasons a lot more Stemilt organic in the Indian marketplace. On top of that, we're a large producer of fresh pears, and that season runs for us through the middle of winter, so we'll continue to develop our pear markets. And we're coming up on the upcoming summer sweet cherry market, and very excited about seeing a lot of growth there, both organic cherries and conventionally.
Well, if you look at the data after bananas, apple perhaps is the second largest consumed fruit in the Indian markets, and you clearly have had a handle onto that one. But Mike, also tell us on what really does an Indian consumer like? Is there price sensitivity there? Have you seen a certain brand that does well for Indian markets? How have you been strategizing it?
So we've obviously been shipping lots of Red Delicious. The Indian consumer loves Reds. That's the #1 volume item. But we're developing new flavors. If you think about India, there's many different demographic sections of the country and different opportunities. So we're broadening that expansion of varieties to include varieties like Pink Lady and Fuji and Granny Smith, and we're doing a new launch on an apple called Pinata that you'll see in the supermarkets and all the markets here in the future.
You know, Mike, as we were just discussing, you have been around for 10 years now for the Indian markets. What really has changed? Have you seen the basket change? Have you seen the consumption pattern change for India? What really has worked for Stemilt as an exporter?
Well, I think the most exciting thing that we see is a young population in India, and they really respond well to apples. Apples are extremely important.
More health conscious, perhaps?
Health conscious. We want to get people out of processed foods and into fresh. And we're seeing an advancement in the supply chain, so better refrigeration and better distribution. And we're able to access that with our Indian partner, IG.
How has the IG and Stemilt partnership really worked? I mean, you have been together for all of these years as well. How is it that you guys complement each other?
IG is our family in India. We really feel that way, and we have the same shared values and the same dedication to quality and service, and we just grow closer and closer together all the time. We can grow and pack all the fruit, but if we haven't got a good Indian partner to get that fruit to market, it's really for naught.
What have been your experience with the new government really? Because a lot of reforms, policies, etc. have changed, etc. Have you seen a change impact you in a good or a bad way?
The change that we see is just more reception to American business, and we really feel like the Indian people welcome us here, and we feel embraced and grateful for that. We do have a bit of a tariff coming in here, and we always hope that between our governments we can maybe reduce that a little bit, but we're not complaining either, as we are seeing wide growth.
And while of course India is one of the growing markets, as you have said, Mike, but what are the other markets that the Stemilt is looking at right now where you see growth coming in?
Our biggest growth market that we see outside of the United States, we're continuing to develop our brands there, but we're working aggressively in Mexico, and Mexico's seen more advancements in retail. We're doing business all over Asia. We're in China and the Pacific Rim, but we really love India.
Mike, also, we of course talked about fruits here. With the India increasing its production as well, do you see a competition coming in from the domestic markets itself into your imports? The most important thing we can do is raise the quality of all apples. So we're for the Indian apple grower as well as ourselves. And I think the biggest thing that we need to do is deliver that consumer satisfaction from any apple experience, and that lifts us all. And so I can see us collaborating with Indian growers on horticultural techniques and storage and handling in the future to just make apples better. Mike, also, the Indian government push towards farming, of course, has increased in the recent few days with the elections as well coming in. There is a lot of push on giving better remuneration to farmers, etc. And there is advice to farmers to grow more fruits and vegetables. As it sells faster, there is a lower shelf life and the prices are high. How would you work in that scenario with the Indian markets? So
when you think about trying to reduce cost or increase enumeration back to the farm, the best way to do it is through efficiencies, right? So we want to embrace the advent of technology, higher yields, better irrigation, better techniques for storage, reduce waste. Food waste is tragic. We don't want to see it. So we want to share best practices on how to drive efficiency.
Well, absolutely. That is something that the Indians perhaps absolutely could learn from all of that. What is your sense, Mike, when it comes to the input cost? Because that is something India really seems to be, hard facing right now. Because while, of course, remuneration is one part of it, but it really is the input cost where India hasn't been able to cut corners there. What is your advice on that?
In apples, the direct labor expense is really the highest input cost. So we need to work on that. We also need to work on just the supply chain and the infrastructure of expediting the fruit in good condition to the market and reducing waste.
Another thing I want to also talk to you is about the technology part of it. While of course, the online sales or the government is trying to connect Mandi on technology via the computer. We also have an eNAM coming in where various producing and the trading centers are being brought on the same table. Is that something that has worked for you as Stemilt? Do you think that is something that brings markets together?
Oh, absolutely, and it's going to grow fast. You look at the population base in India, and the amount of smartphones here is staggering. So I was talking with some online retailers, and they feel like they can get an order distributed from a smartphone to many places in Mumbai within 3 hours. And to think about that instant access to fresh, wholesome, juicy apples is remarkable. So we are partnering through IG with some online providers and excited about the omni-channel.
A final few questions then, Mike. And what is your sense on growth from here on for India and for the rest of your consumer countries as well?
So our company's rapidly expanding. We're going to see significant growth in the next few years. We've got a lot of young trees in the ground, a lot of exciting flavors. If we do the 30,000 metric tons to India this year, I really feel like in 3 years we will double that number, and within 5 years we could double it again. It's really all about getting the consumer a successful experience and getting them to buy again and again. And I think the broadening of our assortment of flavors is going to help us expand this market. And I also feel that the young people of India are going to really respond in a favorable way to our organic apple production.
All right, that's cheers to healthy outlook then. Mike, thank you so much for joining us in Mumbai studios and spending time with us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And I just want to say the Indian people have been so gracious and so warm. It's My first time here, and I will be back. Thank you, India.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, that's, of course, is the outlook on the fruit market in the India. And, of course, while we have seen the prices stabilize there, it really is about the production, higher imports, and the consumption numbers that, of course, have been growing up. But with that, it's time for a break. When we come back, we will have Anil Agarwal of Vedanta joining us with his views on global commodity picture, oil, metal, and prices, and much more. Stay tuned.